Have you ever given your trust to someone only to realize too late that they were never who they appeared to be? Have you ever sat in silence, not because you had nothing to say, but because your spirit was tired of being misunderstood, taken for granted, or quietly manipulated? These aren't questions of bitterness, they're questions of clarity. And as we grow older, clarity becomes one of the few luxuries we no longer have time to postpone. You see, life doesn't always warn you before it hands you lessons. Some of them come wrapped in beauty, affection, and false promises. And before you know it, your peace, the very thing you've spent a lifetime earning, starts to erode. Not loudly, quietly, subtly, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you're no longer living for yourself. You're surviving around someone else's storms. But you didn't come this far to lose yourself now. You didn't carry decades of experience, sacrifice, and self-discipline just to be shaken by someone who confuses chaos for love or guilt for connection. The Stoics remind us that we can't always choose who walks into our lives, but we can choose who stays, and more importantly, who we become in their presence. So today we're going to uncover 7 Stoic principles that will help you see clearly when a relationship, especially with a woman who thrives on control, drama, or deceit, is slowly pulling you away from your values, your purpose, and your peace. This isn't about resentment. It's about reason. It's not about judging her. It's about understanding yourself. If you've ever felt a quiet tension in your heart, a voice that whispered, "This isn't love, this is survival," then what we're about to explore may be exactly what you've needed, not to change her, but to reclaim you. Because in the words of Marcus Aurelius, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, and I'll add, the quality of the company you keep. Let's begin. 7 evident signs that there is an evil woman next to you. Signs. 1. The woman who is always the victim. Beware the subtle trap of sympathy. She never starts the fire, yet somehow she's always standing in the ashes. Every story she tells places her at the center of betrayal, injustice, or misfortune. At first you might feel compassion, you might even feel protective, but as time passes you begin to notice a pattern. Every ex was toxic. Every friend became a backstabber, every job held her back, and now, slowly, you're next in line. Stoicism teaches us to observe, not absorb. As Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. A woman who constantly plays the victim isn't always asking for empathy, sometimes she's asking for control. When you become her emotional caretaker, you lose your clarity, you start managing her narrative instead of your own truth. The solution isn't cruelty, it's boundaries. Let her own her story. You are not here to rewrite it for her. Signs 2. The drama-driven woman. Chaos masquerading as passion. She doesn't argue because something is wrong. She argues because everything is too quiet. Her nervous system is wired to confusion, peace feels unnatural, and if life doesn't deliver enough noise, she creates it. These aren't the natural emotional waves of relationship. This is theater, and you're expected to perform on cue. Seneca wrote, "An angry man is again angry with himself when he returns to reason." And this applies to men pulled into the orbit of constant conflict. The more you try to explain yourself, the more confused you become. You were never meant to fix her world. You were simply cast to keep it spinning. The Stoic man responds with stillness. He does not chase storms. He builds his life where peace has room to breathe. Signs. 3. The guilt architect. Where affection turns into leverage. You begin cancelling plans, adjusting your schedule, softening your words, not because you want to, but because you're afraid of hurting her feelings. At first, it feels like love. Eventually, it feels like walking on glass. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But guilt, when weaponized, makes you doubt that strength. A woman who subtly punishes your independence, who turns every no into a wound, is not nurturing intimacy, she's feeding dependence. A Stoic man must return to what is just, not what is comfortable. Compassion is not submission. You are not responsible for the emotional weather inside someone else's heart. Signs. 4. The woman without empathy. Loneliness in the company of another. Real connection isn't found in constant conversation, it's felt in quiet presence. But when pain enters your life, loss, fatigue, grief, you find her absent, or worse, dismissive. You begin to realize you're lonelier next to her than you ever were alone. Seneca once said, "You must live for yourself before you can live with another." A woman who lacks empathy cannot meet you where you are. She may smile, she may sit close, but her heart is elsewhere, usually with herself. And you, once seen as a man, become reduced to a role, the listener, the provider, the one expected to hold space while getting none in return. Signs. She values image more than integrity, status over sincerity. Everything must be seen, what she wears, who she knows, where she goes. But you begin to feel invisible, not because you're not enough, but because you can't be polished into something to display. Epictetus warned us, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. A woman obsessed with the external can never rest. And when you're with someone who is always reaching for more, you're forced to carry the weight of that emptiness. Stoicism teaches us to focus on character, on what cannot be seen but always felt. A relationship without depth will drain you, no matter how bright it looks from the outside. Signs. 6. The unaccountable mind. She cannot say, "I was wrong." You explain, you clarify, you offer logic and grace. But every disagreement ends the same way, you apologizing for how she feels while she rewrites the truth. Not out of malice, but because accountability terrifies her. To admit fault is to admit imperfection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If anyone can refute me, show me I am making a mistake, I will gladly change." That is Stoic strength, humility. But a woman who cannot admit error is not growing. She is surviving through deflection. And if you're always the one adjusting, bending, softening, eventually you disappear. Signs. 7. The time thief. When disrespect hides behind excuses. She's always late, plans are cancelled, time slips through the cracks of her whims. And at first you forgive, then you tolerate. Then you begin to shrink your life to fit hers, only to realize one day you've been waiting too long for someone who never planned to show up fully. Seneca reminds us, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Time, to the Stoic, is sacred. It is not something you give to someone who cannot value it. A woman who disrespects your time is not disorganized, She is disinterested in honoring your life. You are not a placeholder. You are not a backup. You are a man with limited hours left in this world. Spend them wisely. There's a profound difference between the man who is stoic in spirit and the man who merely reacts to the world around him. One walks into chaos and remains rooted. The other becomes chaos the moment things don't go his way. And it's in these contrasts that our understanding deepens, not just of others, but of ourselves. The Stoic man sees things as they are. He doesn't dress up reality with illusions or excuse the unacceptable in the name of love or loyalty. He listens not just to words, but to patterns, to energy, to the weight of how someone makes him feel over time. When he recognizes manipulation, drama, or emotional volatility, he doesn't explode. He doesn't accuse. He withdraws, not in fear, but in clarity. For him, boundaries are not barriers. They are expressions of wisdom. In contrast, the non-Stoic man becomes entangled. He overanalyzes every message, second-guesses himself when guilt is projected onto him, and allows silence to be filled with assumptions instead of patience. His self-worth fluctuates with every emotional wave someone else throws at him. He's driven by the hope that if he gives more, sacrifices more, loves harder, he'll finally be enough. But as Stoicism teaches, the moment you try to earn your peace through someone else's approval, you've already surrendered it. A Stoic man, when faced with a woman who cannot admit fault, doesn't argue endlessly. He understands that reason must meet reason. If it doesn't, there is no dialogue, only emotional entanglement. He does not feel threatened by disagreement because his ego is not built on being right, but he won't stay in a space where truth has no room to grow. As Marcus Aurelius put it, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. He knows that staying silent in the presence of dysfunction is not kindness, it is self-abandonment. The non-Stoic man, on the other hand, confuses sacrifice with love. He rationalizes emotional manipulation as just how she is. He dismisses red flags as quirks, hoping they'll disappear with enough time or affection, but in doing so, he trades his integrity for false hope. And eventually, he wakes up tired, not just physically but spiritually, as if a piece of him has been slowly chipped away. Let's take time. A Stoic values his time like a sacred currency. He gives it with intention and guards it with discipline. If someone repeatedly disrespects it, he doesn't lash out, he simply stops offering it. For him, time isn't something you beg others to honor, it's something you stop giving to those who won't. Meanwhile, a non-Stoic man explains. He overjustifies. He lowers his expectations and waits for respect that never comes, all while telling himself he's being patient. He confuses tolerance with virtue and wonders why peace feels so far away. So what does this all mean? It means your power lies not in changing others, but in choosing your response. To live as a Stoic man is not to become cold, distant, or cynical. It's to become rooted, deliberate, and aware. You no longer mistake emotional intensity for connection. You no longer confuse guilt for responsibility. You no longer stay in places where your peace must constantly be defended. The contrast is simple, but life-changing. The Stoic man responds, the reactive man reacts. The Stoic man reflects before engaging. The reactive man explains before thinking. The Stoic man walks away when needed. The reactive man waits, hoping to be seen. This isn't about superiority, it's about sovereignty, about reclaiming the power to choose clarity over confusion, depth over drama, and peace over chaos. And when you live that way, something powerful happens. You stop attracting storms and start creating stillness. You stop needing to be needed and start becoming whole. You stop chasing respect and start embodying it. If there's one truth the Stoics taught us again and again, it's this: peace is not something given by others, it is something protected by you. And when you choose peace over pride, clarity over confusion, and character over charm, you step into the kind of strength that no one can take from you. What we've just explored are not signs to make you bitter or fearful, they are signs to make you wise. Because wisdom doesn't mean closing your heart, it means opening your eyes. You cannot control how someone treats you, but you can control what you tolerate. You cannot force someone to change, but you can change how close they stand to your life. And you cannot rewrite the past, but you can decide who deserves a place in your future. That is the power of choice, and it belongs to you now more than ever. Seneca once wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." That doesn't just apply to friendships, it applies to love, to family, to anyone who sits at your table and speaks into your life. Because the company you keep shapes the clarity you live with. So take a breath, look around, ask yourself, who adds to your peace and who steals it quietly, one excuse at a time? And then live your answer. If this message stirred something in you, I invite you to stay with us. This channel, Ultimate Stoicism, was built for those who seek not just knowledge, but transformation. For men and women who've lived enough life to know that strength isn't about noise, it's about stillness. If you found value in what we shared today, don't just click away. Leave a comment, share your experience, your story, your truth. Maybe you've met someone like the ones we've discussed. Maybe you're becoming the Stoic self you were always meant to be. Either way, your words could be the very clarity someone else needs. And of course, subscribe to the channel, not because we ask, but because you want to keep walking this path. With every video, we're sharpening perspective, growing together, and holding the line between what's real and what's merely seductive. So stay grounded, stay strong, and above all, stay true to your peace. Until next time, keep walking with wisdom.